name is Olivia. I apologize if you were here for my father. I know he's very famous in his workshop, but you're with me. It's my first workshop, so maybe I can convert you to be a fan of me. I like that. So my title is Confessions of an Accidental CS Major, so I think we all know I'm a CS major. But I want to give you a little introduction because this is my first workshop. I'm freshly 21, so I finally hit that milestone. I'm allowed to legally drink. I'm able to have some beers with my dad now. It's pretty cool. So I am an accidental CS major. I promise we'll get to that. I have a minor in religious studies, which is also accidental. There's a pattern here. And I can play 7 musical instruments because I am a nerd. So, well, and I'm also a very big dog lover. I've gotten into cats this year, but dogs have a special place in my heart. So before we start, I think that's almost inappropriate if I don't say hello to someone and introduce someone, even though I know everyone knows you. So my father is Artie Eacock. Today, he's not wearing a Hawaiian shirt, but usually you'll find him wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, always. I will try to continue that tradition. You know, my skirt, I think it's a little Hawaiian. Trying to help you out. He's a systems programmer, and he's been in the field for 40 plus years, and he's been attending these conferences for around like 30. So, does anyone want to guess his age? He's very passionate about his field. Even when I was younger, I always thought that everyone was happy with their job. I've never seen someone in my life unhappy with their job because my father, he loved what he does and he is so happy all the time and he loves to learn and he is a lifelong learner. One of the things that I grew up with him telling me about was that every day he learned something new. And I try to do that too, but sometimes it doesn't always happen. And because I have to.
Who's that young stud on the left?
This is my father. And I don't know what year that was taken, but I think by the background of all those computers.
Late 70s.
It has to be, but that mustache, I mean, he still has that mustache. But I have to embarrass him just a little bit. Cannot. So why did I choose CS from the beginning? So it definitely wasn't lack of access because obviously my father is a systems programmer. You can imagine that I could do whatever I wanted and I probably would have had a leg up. But that wasn't the case. I actually had a little interest in middle school, and we'll get to that, but I saw my dad, and I always knew he was really talented. He was always one of the smartest people I knew. But it's not that I didn't want to compete with that. It was just, I wanted that to be his thing, and I kind of wanted to have my own thing. And I am a very curious person, and I like to have many interests. So already you can tell I have a minor in religious studies. I play 7 different musical instruments. Like I like to dip my feet in everything. But my father, he devoted himself to systems programming and computer science. So I kind of just stayed away from it. I want that to be his thing. I'll do mine. So in middle school, there was this ninja club, and it was brand new. And it was the computer club, and the only computer club of my middle school. And I, of course, was part of it. And the first year I was there, they integrated Chromebooks into my middle school. So everyone had Chromebooks, and then the teachers had Chromebooks too, and they, went away with paper and textbooks and all of that. And I was kind of in charge of fixing the Chromebooks and helping the teachers use the Google Suite and Google Classroom and all of that. And this is important to remember, I used to skip class sometimes, and I would just pretend to break my Chromebook so I can go down to the lab and just fix it, of course, and just start fixing other Chromebooks because I don't want to be in class anymore. So I would just get out, pretend that I don't know what I'm doing, and I would go hang out with the teacher at the time, and I'd fix the Chromebooks, and I'd probably learn something new. So I started liking computers at that point, but shortly after, we took a turn. So in high school, the high school that I went to in particular, it actually had a computer science program. and I wasn't a part of it, and we'll get to that. And I didn't even really want to be part of it. I didn't even hear good things about it. I had a lot of friends in it, but it wasn't that pleasing to me. So I've been playing piano at that point for probably like 7 years, so I was classically trained. And I decided to start marching band. And marching band was the best decision I ever made because it was practices almost every day, and I got to meet some of the best people that I'm still friends with now. And it got me really involved with school, and we got to go on vacations, and it was fun. I finally found something that was kind of like my thing that I was a part of, and it felt good to have a family because we really were a family. I mean, we were together 24/7. And some pictures of our Disney trip, our Boston trip. And then I also in high school got involved with clubs that are more political science. So youth and government, UN. And we'd have kind of like workshops, we called them conferences, that were over the weekend. And, we would assign whatever country, and then we had to, present laws and fix problems and pretend that we were ambassadors and all of that. And that's what got me into public speaking and also piqued my interest about political science. So that was also really fun. We won awards, and I had my first real medal that I got in school. It was a good time. But I was always a curious student, so we know that now. I never wanted to waste time, and my whole skipping class in middle school, well, I took that again in high school, where if I was in a health class, per se, I didn't care about health. It wasn't my thing. I didn't want to be there. I would skip health class. I would go to a web design class, and I would hang out with the teacher. I would learn something. I'd use AutoCAD. I'd go on Photoshop. I'd basically get an education in that class. In a health class, all right, I'm learning something, but I'm not learning something that I want to learn. So I never got detention. I never got in trouble, but I never wanted to waste time. I wanted to keep going, and plus a lot of those classes that I ended up going to and learning something were classes that they didn't even allow me to take, because in high school, that computer science program I told you about, those were only for students who were in the computer science program and who applied and tried out and got in and had the right test scores. So that wasn't me. So I was not to take those classes, so I never really got to continue my computer science learning after middle school. My father could have helped me out if I wanted, but I was involved with band and Mao UN, and that took all my time, so it wasn't too hard on me. So one of the biggest reasons why I never really considered computer science, especially in high school, was because they really made you feel less than, because you weren't in the right math or this and that. And that's true, I wasn't in the right math, and that's in complete honesty. In elementary school, they start the standardized testing, and I never took that seriously, and you can't retake it. And I was never in the high math, and there's nothing I could do from a very young age. And I just felt all right, if they don't let me into this program, then maybe I'm not cut out to be a computer science person. And I was okay with that because I found other things that I preferred. So I eventually moved on. I was whatever. And I fell in love with physics. So I always kind of had a thing for space. I always liked watching stuff about NASA and documentaries. But then I took a physics class in junior year of high school, and that was when I really liked it, because you were actually learning something. And I had a fantastic teacher. I still contact him this day, and he's really proud of where I ended up because he loved me as a student, but he knew that I could go further because there was times after school where he allowed you to come back and me take a test if you got lower than a 70. Not to brag, but I never got lower than 70 in physics. It was high school physics, and I loved physics, and I loved being in this class. I would go after school, and if I did get a below 100, then I would, be all right, what did I get wrong? But really, I was just there because what else can you teach me? Or I would start making up problems and asking him, be all right, here's how to find velocity, but what if you're doing this, this, and this? I was just always curious, and I always wanted to learn more. And that was junior year of high school, so that's the time when you're starting to apply to college and think about that. So I was like, maybe physics could be a good thing for me. Now, anyone who knows a little bit about physics knows that math is literally all in physics. So if I'm not good at math, how could I possibly be going into physics? Well, surprisingly, I am good at math when it's like very simple and like straight to the point in my head at least, and physics. And I was actually pretty good in physics. And in college, this picture is actually so funny. I was home from school the first year because of COVID. So this is my technically second year, and no one was ever in the class. So this was 2021. No one was showing up to class. So we had this huge lecture hall, and I would just take up like 4 seats. I'd put my feet up. I'd have some drinks. I'd have some snacks. I was having the time of my life. But this, exactly, this particular picture in this lecture hall was the class that I had my first real like coding involved computer science course. I took one computer science course before this, kind of for fun, and it was just a Microsoft Suite based class, and we learned to access database and things like that, and that was just very simple for me, and I actually finished the course a month early and requested to take the final early because I was like, again, not wasting time. So for college, I committed to WVU, and my original major and minor was physics with an emphasis in astrophysics and political science, because the Model UN, the youth in government, political science was kind of my thing. But I discovered a new interest because I just won't stop apparently. There's these little winter semester courses that they have now, and they're basically free, which is awesome. And they're 3-hour courses, but I was looking at them and nothing really like piqued my interest because they're not really like major related courses. They're kind of just electives. But there was a religious studies class, and I was like, I remember fighting with my parents about having to go to CCD as a kid, and like I don't really know anything about religion. Like I don't think it's gonna be really my speed, but it was free, so I was like, I'll take it. If I don't do well, I'll just drop the class. Like no big deal. Well, I didn't drop the class. I actually loved the class, and I not only loved it, but I loved the teacher. And I went to that teacher, and I took all of her other classes. So I basically had a religious studies minor within a year.
Yeah, religious experience.
Literally, yes. Mm-hmm. So it was surprising, though, that you think that a religious studies course can't be that hard, especially like a 100 level course. It was actually very hard. There were some questions in there that I actually would show my father because he actually is interested in religious studies more than I was. And I'd be like, Dad, can you believe this? Like some of these questions were kind of crazy to me. And I was like, that's crazy. And also a winter semester course, you only have like 2 weeks. So you're not really getting a full 15-week education in the 2 weeks, but it's very sped up and it's a lot of work in those 2 weeks. And it was like pretty hard to, get a good grade. I got an A, of course. But, I understand why people would struggle in that course. So, no hate saying my physics major path. So at this stage, I'm a sophomore in college, and I'm still a physics major. But I found out that in the path with my advisor that you have to take 4 computer science and computer programming courses in the engineering department. And they recommend to take it in your junior year. But I had some extra time. I was like, because they're 4 credit courses, they're not just 3 credit courses. I was like, can I just take it early? Let's just take it now. And she was like, yeah, why not? You have the room for it, go for it. I'd be hitting that 20-hour marker, but so what? So I ended up taking CS 110, and that was my first coding course, and that's what kind of changed everything for me. So what now? I took 1 class, and I need 3 more for my physics major, but it got to the point where I started preferring to go to computer science and do my computer science homework and not really do my physics homework. And I started dreading physics class all of a sudden, and it just wasn't for me. And again, I like all these different things, but just physics at that point, I've taken a few physics courses, and it was fun and it was interesting, but it didn't have the freedom to me that computer science did. So I decided to change my major and my minor. So I made this decision, and I felt very lonely because I'm in sophomore in college, and at this point we're in my last semester, so we're in the spring semester. And all my friends, they were like, "Oh, like you shouldn't, like that's a terrible idea. Like you're almost halfway done. Like, what are you doing?" But I had some good friends and my family, of course, who supported me, and they were like, "No, like you definitely should." But the biggest push was actually the faculty, because I never really had like good faculty like in my life that supported you, encouraged you, and having a computer science professor, especially in those like early days of like me learning Java and how to code and baby's first code. It really helped me like actually make that transition and like push towards a computer science degree, because I felt like, all right, like if this teacher is saying I can do it, then like maybe I should do it. And I also knew that teacher I was going to have him again for more classes, so I was like guaranteed to like not suffer too much. So one thing that I did want to note is my biggest pushback was the major of computer science is actually more rigorous, in my opinion, than the physics major at WVU, because the physics major is in the arts and sciences school, so it's a bachelor's of science degree, which makes sense. But the computer science is in the engineering school, which is also a bachelor's of science degree, but it's also an engineering degree. And engineering school has a lot more requirements than the arts and sciences school. So remember that whole math thing I told you about? And like you think, oh, but physics, math. I got through those maths for physics, but they were not the maths you needed for computer science. So another reason why I almost didn't even want to like computer science anymore. I was like, this can't be real. But again, the faculty, they really helped me and they supported me, and that was a first for me in my life. And ultimately, that was the biggest reason why I decided to transition and make the switch. So where am I now? I explained to you the whole story about going up and down and this and that and all my interests, and how I just won't stop, won't just pick one. So now I am finally officially a computer science major, and my emphasis, because they require you to have an emphasis, is in software engineering. And I picked that kind of just because the professor that I had, he was in charge of the software engineering department for graduate school. So I was just like, I'll just go for that for right now. And my minor is in religious studies. And crazy thing, I have a potential mathematics minor, because I'm taking so many math courses that I'm almost at the level of a minor, which is, I think, crazy, because I'm the person who wasn't good in math and wasn't even good enough to be in computer science courses in high school, and now I'm taking a computer science degree, and I potentially have a math minor if I choose. And what have I learned so far? So I've probably taken about 6 to 8 computer science courses and computer engineering courses, and I've learned the GitHub software. Finally, like, it took a while. We were using GitHub, but it took a while for me to really get the hang of it. Eclipse, the Eclipse workspace, and then a bunch of different languages. Now, coding languages are all good and fun, but what is one thing besides a language that is missing from this slide?
Mainframe.
Thank you. Mainframe. There is nothing. No class that I can take right now that's part of my school that will teach me the mainframe. So all of this that I'm learning in this past day and a half, not available in college to me. I haven't learned it yet. Hopefully one day I will. So my overall opinion is I definitely have a problem with having so many interests, but I think that's a cool thing. I like to dip my toes in everything. But I would definitely, if I could go back, I would start at a young age, and I would wish that schools weren't so focused on test scores and you have to do this and that, because if I was able to be in that computer science program, maybe things would look a little different for me right now. But that's just a high school program, and they just learn Java, so maybe that wouldn't have changed. But it definitely made me not want to be a computer science major, that's for sure. And math. Yes, you need math, and you have to be good at math, but I just think that there's definitely a disconnect because physics, again, it's all math based. So for me to have an easier time doing that than the math courses I'm taking now is a little crazy. In computer science classes, they should be open to everyone. It shouldn't matter about what you test or what you got in this course or whatever. And even right now, the struggle that I'm having is, wait lists for class. I'm sure you guys all remember, trying to get into the best courses, the best teachers, and I have to wait to take certain computer science courses because I have to take the other ones first, but then I can't take the other one because I'm on the wait list. So it's just like a constant, I'm just like, let me just take the class. Like, I just want to take all these classes, I have the time, and it's just like there's so many hurdles in my way. And maybe try not to change my major again, like halfway through college, because it really wasn't fun. I'm glad I did it. I have no regrets, but it probably wasn't the best decision looking back. And where do I want to be? So hopefully, even though I did change my major late, I'd like to be graduated by December of 2024, fingers crossed. And I'd either like to head to graduate school and pursue a master's degree in software engineering, or I'd like to head straight into the workforce, we'll see. And then as a thank you, because I know it's a little bit up and down, and because I am a big dog lover, I'd like to share the joy of some of the dogs that have been in my life. And that's all I have for you guys.
Of that list of items that you had up there, languages and functions and that kind of stuff, did you have a favorite?
Not really.
Did you get into anything like web development, CSS, HTML, JavaScript, that kind of stuff?
So we did that this year in my software engineering class. It was mostly TypeScript and a little bit of HTML. I mean, honestly, Java, I spent a year straight in Java and just learning Java, so I obviously feel more confident in that. The other languages I actually learned this year, and not only did I learn it this year, but I learned this year in a very fast-paced course where it was like 2 hours a week, and 1 hour you were learning Perl, and the next hour you were learning Rust, and it was like, and then we have tests on it, and Prolog, and it was at a fast pace, but it was like enough that I know the fundamentals and can hopefully go back and just freshen up and reteach myself.
Well, of those, I thought Python was the most fun. But that's what I had.
Well, they didn't. So for my software engineering class, where it was mostly HTML, it was a group decision with what language you wanted to mostly use. Python was an option, but we just didn't choose to do it. So I just spent a semester not using it. So maybe next semester I'll get to use it more.
So when did you have the test that streamed you into the more fundamental math?
That was in third grade.
Third grade?
Yes.
I did not realize. So they do that across the country, or is that just
It might just be a New Jersey thing. I'm really not sure. But it was about in third, maybe it could be fourth grade, where they kind of determine in middle school if you're placed in, it's like algebra or geometry, something like that. And then once you're in, you're in. You can't retake the test. You can't ask, oh, can I be in geometry? Because then you'll be skipping a math. Same thing for high school.
So for grade 4, 5, 6, you were in different classes and the people that excelled at that math exam.
Yeah, they called it middle school to not make the kids feel bad, like enriched versus accelerated. But they were two different maths. So it wasn't just like, oh, they're learning faster because, it's acceleration, you think, oh, it's faster. No, it was two different maths that you were locked in, and that was that.
And it was one test.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure that maybe if I did better on the other standardized tests, maybe I can like try to have gotten away with like, oh, but I did good, so you should let me in. But at that point, it's like, again, like you'll be skipping math, and obviously like they can't have that.
So in your busy schedule, I'd encourage you to write a letter to the ministry responsible to tell them your story.
Yeah. I plan once I have my degree in hand to go back to like high school or something and share my story in a very nice way and just be like, I did it, that even though you're in this computer science program, I wasn't and I still got it. So, yes.
Between the last couple of days and maybe the history of your dad, seeing the work that he does this kind of a technology, the mainframe technology, have interest in you?
It definitely does. I actually have to say that in this last day and a half, I've learned a lot, surprisingly, actually even in your talks with schooling. I was able to catch on, and I kind of like honestly am a little sad that I have to go back to school and like I don't get to have this anymore. I definitely think that's a problem, and I wish I could learn more. But the mainframe, I think it's very cool. I've always heard about my dad, talking about it, but I never knew what it actually was and like how important it really was.
You've talked about variety. There is a lot of variety
Yeah.
in this area.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem because they're pushing right now us to do like cybersecurity and be a security person. Like you can be a security person, but they're pushing like government work or like startup work, which is all good and stuff, but like no one ever talks about the mainframe anymore.
Do they, anywhere in your course of study as a computer science major, do you get a kind of an overview of the history of computer science? So that you put that into a greater context? Do they offer anything like that?
So, off the top of my head, the only course that comes to mind is the course that I just took this year. So, it was the course where I took and I learned all those languages. We did a little bit about like the history and like why this is important, but I think that just the curriculum and the time constraints, we missed some marks. Like COBOL, for example. My dad, from a very young age, always told me how important COBOL was, and in that class, COBOL is not important, and we didn't learn COBOL, and that's something that I would have to teach myself. And I think it's a very important language that I think everyone should learn. I mean, I have to learn it, but I think it just missed some marks there.
But they never discussed that as to why one's more important than the other.
Not really.
Interesting.
Yes.
You have almost a minor in math. What areas of math have you studied in college?
All mostly calculus, completely. Just multiple different forms of calculus.
Differential equations,
Differential equations, multivariable.
any abstract algebra or anything like that?
No, but I can, if I decide to go with the minor, I will have to take about like 2 more math classes that like they consider like as eligible, would be like some algebra classes.
Number theory, there are things from number theory that are used in cryptography and so on. That might be interesting.
Cryptography is very cool.
Beyond this list, it doesn't have to be computer science related. Think of code in there.
COBOL.
Figure.
I have had many conversations with many people here about COBOL and how important it is
You're in the right
because
place, by the way.
yes, and I'm excited to get my feet into that. I think it'll only benefit me and help me. So I think actually coming here has definitely broadened my horizons and like made me understand that like, what I'm learning is important in college and the degree is important, but I think that there's a lot more to it, which sounds like, oh, of course there is, but when you're in college, especially right now, they make it seem like what they're teaching you is exactly what you're gonna do when you get out of college, and all they're doing is like predicting. Like the big thing now is Rust, so they think that I'm gonna be doing Rust and I'm gonna have a Rust job when I get out of college, and it's like, maybe, I don't know, could be very unlikely.
I also attend college, so I understand the generals. I get it.
Any more questions?
Would you consider yourself a self-learner?
I think so. I I think so, yes, because I kind of always had to be. Because back to the whole faculty thing, my high school teachers, you know, they weren't the best teachers in the world, and I had to do a lot on my own. You know, they kind of just were like, all right, like read this, and you have to test that, and then, you know, take notes and do the homework and whatever. And also, like with physics, like, you know, when I'm interested in something, yes, I would bother my physics teacher about it, be like, teach me this, teach me that. But I would take it upon myself to do the research and, you know, teach myself because I like it. I've done it with instruments too. You know, back in my marching band days, you know, my director would come to me and be like, hey, I need tenor sax in this. And I'd be like, do you have tenor sax for me? And now I have my own tenor sax and I'm able to play tenor sax. I mean, granted, you know, I come from a background, so it wasn't that hard, but I like teaching myself and I like doing that. And, you know, a lot of students don't, but I like it. I don't mind it. That's it. Awesome.
All right.